Welcome to the Front Gap debate. The debate, of course, already started with these guests. Sudan is in the midst of change, but is it the change that people want? There's been a mass mobilisation this Thursday. It's been announced as a 1 million-strong march. It's converging on Khartoum, of course, to express concerns about the transition of power. Omar al Bachir was forced out of power by the army on April the 11th. That's the same Omar al Bachir who ruled Sudan for over 30 years, the same man who's still wanted by the International Criminal Court on war crimes in the Darfur conflict. His downfall followed weeks of protests that began as complaints over the cost of living. It ended with a regime change forced from the streets. The problem now for the streets is that the power isn't theirs. The army, in the shape of a military council, holds sway. The people on the streets fear the old system of al-Bashir is perhaps just replacing itself with something kind of similar. Well, our guest to discuss the future of Sudan, and believe me, it means a lot to these people because it's their country. Let me introduce them to you in no order of preference, because I'm just glad that you're all here to discuss and share what you feel. First, Azza Ali, a civil activist, thank you very much for being with us. On the other side of our studio, but not necessarily against, Abdul Wahid Al-Noor, co-founder and chairman of the Sudanese Liberation Movement. Good to see you, sir. Again, other side of the studio, Ali Treo, who's chief negotiator of the Sudan Liberation Movement. That's the SLM led by Mini Minawi. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Joining us from London is Dame Rosalind Marsden, who's an Associate Fellow at Chatham House's Africa Programme, former British Ambassador to Sudan and EU Special Representative for Sudan and South Sudan. Dame Rosalind, thank you for joining us too. And coming to us from Khartoum by Skype is Firas Faisal, who is a protester, and we're looking forward to hearing from you, Firas, about what's been happening today and what the current feel is there. We'll get back to you in a moment. First, the latest from our correspondent in Khartoum, Julia Steers.
Hundreds of protesters poured into the capital this week, greeted by jubilant crowds after 3 days of travel by bus from Darfur.
This is a feeling that we all Sudanese have been dreaming about, to become as one nation, to have all our brothers in nation from Darfur and from other parts of country.
After years of being targeted for their ethnicity, it's important for Darfurians to be a part of the movement.
We must unite to overthrow the system together, the corrupt system that caused the death and homelessness of people in Darfur and elsewhere.
For now, the new arrivals are making do, sleeping in tents at the sit-in site. They're determined to have their voices heard and to work toward the full dismantling of the former regime.
These are our brothers who came from the territory of Darfur. We did what we could do. We came here with a purpose, to overthrow the system. After that, we can celebrate and go back. If the system isn't completely gone, there's no going back. We'll stay, we'll observe Ramadan here.
They wake up to the sounds of the revolution and prepare to join thousands of others in the streets. But Darfurians here say they're not only seeking total regime change, but also justice for crimes committed by Omar al Bachir.
Some of the Sudanese want to judge Bashir here. They want to hang him or they want to execute his head. That's what I want to do. But what I think it should be right to be done, the International Criminal Court has to take its steps forward.
The military government said they won't extradite al-Bashir to The Hague, but together with the voices of Darfurians, calls are growing for the ex-dictator to face international justice.
Julia Steers and Bastien Runwi, our correspondents there in Khartoum. Before I let loose our guests, let me just tell you we've asked the Sudanese embassy here in Paris to provide a guest to come in and speak to us from their perspective. They declined the invitation. We made an approach to the military council to do the same, and again, no reply. So we tried our best to give balance. We've got a real panel here of people who want the change from the civilian aspect. So that's the angle we're going to discuss and try and be as balanced as we possibly can. And thank you all for coming in. Let's start first with Firas Faisal, who's joining us by Skype from Khartoum. Firas, I hope you can hear us. Tell us what's been happening. Tell us what you've been seeing. Tell us what the mood is where you are.
Well, since the Military Transitional Council has made their announcement about trying to move the roadblocks and open the main roads and bridges to the center of Khartoum, people has been going out to the streets in rage. to express their rage against the manipulation of the Transitional Military Council, because we see no intentions in handing over the power to civilians after all of the effort that we've done in the past months to make a democratic transition.
Is there any fear from your perspective about what might happen when you express what you've described as rage?
Well, what is going to happen is that the revolution is going to keep going until it fulfills its objectives. In the middle of the announcements of the military council that they will not allow chaos and they will not allow Sudan to slip into chaos, and of course they mean by that people at the sitting and the people protesting on the streets, but there is no response at all from the protesters other than an increasing pace of protests.
Firas, thank you very much. Let me bring in now from London Dame Rosalind Marsden from Chatham House, a former British ambassador to Sudan. Dame Rosalind, in terms of how you're seeing this, with your knowledge of the country and how things work, do you have a good feeling about what's happening, or do you have any misgivings?
Well, it's clearly a historic moment for Sudan, and the future of the country is still uncertain because there's still been no handover of power to the civilians, which is what the protest movement has been asking for, an immediate transition to a civilian administration. All the way through the last 4 months, during the nationwide peaceful protests, the main slogan of the protesters has been peace, freedom and justice. So over the last few weeks, we've seen negotiations going on between the Transitional Military Council and the protest leaders, who are grouped under the name the Forces for Freedom and Change, which includes professionals, trade unionists, opposition parties and civil society. And they've been asking for a swift transition to civilian rule. We understood a few days ago that there was possibly an agreement had been reached in principle to have a joint sovereign council with both civilians and military taking part. But there's still been no agreement, I think, on the composition or on the powers of the various transitional bodies. And I understand that the Forces for Freedom and Change have now put forward a set of proposals setting out their views. But we don't know how the Transitional Military Council will respond. And there's obviously great concern and lack of trust as to whether it's going to go forward in the way the protest leaders are demanding, and hence the determination to keep the protests going outside the military headquarters and to keep all this going until the objectives of the revolution have been achieved.
Dame Rosalind, for now, thank you very much indeed. Dame Rosalind joining us there from London. Firas Faisal in Khartoum. Here in the studio, 3 guests with a real interest in the situation, starting here with civil activist Asa Ali. In terms of, I imagine you wish that you were in Khartoum now as part of that protest.
Okay. Peace, freedom and justice and revolution, the choice of nation. So the revolution will continue, and the struggling will enhance until the civilian government, not less. From the beginning, the revolution start with after declaration of freedom and change. So until they achieved all the point in the declaration, freedom and change, the citizen will continue. Now, a lot of people, more the protesters, come from the other region, from the Sudan, for the support the citizen in Khartoum, and it will continue even in the Ramadan, the difficult time in Ramadan, until the civilian government, not less.
Indeed. Protesters coming as far away as from Darfur as well, which of course is obviously with the genocide that began in 2003, and the violence still continues.
The main rule for the military now to government to protect the revolution and protect the people. This is the duty for the military.
Do you think they're carrying out that duty, or do you think it's a self-interest situation?
It must be the military duty and the military role protect. So they must protect the revolution and protect the people. And also we had enough from the military government, more than 50 years. And Sudan destroyed within this period of time. So now all the revolution is done by for developing and for the civilian government. The military government only protect the corruption, not less, in the Africa.
Okay. Asa, thank you. And can I just say to all the guests, don't hesitate to join in anytime you wish, and I'll try to sort of make sure you'll get an equal say if you have something you want to butt in about or talk about. And that goes obviously for our guest in London and in Khartoum. Back to the studio, Abdul Wahid Al-Noor from the Sudanese Liberation Movement. So Abdul Wahid, at this point in time, is it frustration you feel? Is it a sense of not trusting what's going on that you feel? Tell us what your thoughts are.
No, I'm not frustrated. I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
Yes, this is accumulated revolution. We fought this government 18 years continuously. We faced genocide, ethnic cleansings, and war crime and crime against humanity. And this is why nearly all of their cabinet is wanted by ICC. So our society is already paid. We suffer a lot. We demonstrate in the street 18 years continuously. A lot of civilians killed and raped and driven from their homes. It is an accumulated. We believe that it's an accumulation because we shift this Islamic fundamentalist government from their own purpose to ours. We fought them, we exhaust them financially, buying weapons, corrupted international figures to have a resolution in their favor, paid to militias. For 18 years, we refuse any kind of fake deals. This means that we let them feel failure state. So after that, Sudanese people, all of them came in the street because they believe, in particular youth, girl and women and boys, they reach in a point that there is no current to them or near future or long-term future except to change this regime. So they revolt, they went to the street without back. From now, this is the 5th month continuously. So this means that this is a revolution of generation. Good thing is that Mrs.
Rosalind, Dame Rosalind. Dame Rosalind, excuse me.
Yes, Ambassador Rosalind is here. I remember there was a meeting for Sudan called in 2015, 16. I told them.
You told Dame Rosalind?
Yes, they were the international community's observers and facilitators. The massive majority of Sudanese representatives, in particular new generation, is not here in this table.
Exactly.
They are a new generation revolt. They revolt against the government, against these elite political bodies, whom both of them, they are part of the problem, not part of the solution. So our SLM dimension is totally different because we did one significant thing. Since we came with an idea, education for liberation. We let youth to know their right, to know that they are citizens in this country. They have a right. They have right to change their country. They have a right to have a better life, better current and better future. So now they believe on it, and they revolt, and they came to the street, and they have one demand. This regime must go. This system must go, not individual. The system itself must go forever.
Because when the figurehead goes, the system remains, and that's the point, isn't it? Let's bring in your colleague. I don't describe his rivals. I think you're working for the same thing. But Ali Traore is from the Sudan Liberation Movement. It is a different named organisation. In terms of what you're looking for, Ali, I mean, I imagine it's similar, but you must have a slightly different take on things.
Shukran, Mr. Mark, for inviting me, and also I welcome my colleagues on the studio and also overseas.
Thanks a lot.
Ambassador Rosalind and a chap from Khartoum.
Firas.
Now, let me just contextualize my answer to your question. First of all, I agree that the whole process is an incremental process. It has not started in December or September 2013. We fought for almost decades, especially the armed movements. As Chairman Abdul Wahid mentioned, that we pushed the regime to the extent that 75 to 80% of the budget was dedicated to security and war. Myself was, at a certain point, I was a member of parliament in Sudan, so I know all these details. Therefore, December 9 or 13 was an explosion of the situation, of this kind of congested situation. April 11 was an implosion from within the regime itself. The NCB start collapsing, things fall apart. So the whole thing is a continuation of that long time. Now, to your question, it is very important that we need to
I need to pause you. We need to make a commercial break, but you will get to pick up where you left off as soon as we come back, I promise. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry to stop you. Quick break, then more news, and of course we'll come back to this debate on Sudan. Stay with us. Welcome back to part two of the France 24 debate. We're talking about Sudan. A march billed as being 1 million strong is gathering in Khartoum. The people whose protest forced the ouster of long-standing dictator and wanted war criminal Omar al Bashir are worried, concerned their dreams of democracy will be lost somehow in transition. So the hopes and fears for the future of Sudan are being discussed here in our studio. Our guests are, I'll quickly run through again, Asa Ali, civil activist, thank you for being with us. On the other side of our studio, it's Abdel Wahid Al-Nur, co-founder of the Sudanese Liberation Movement. Ali Trayo, on the other side of the studio, chief negotiator of the Sudan Liberation Movement. And two guests joining us from afar in London, Dame Rosalind Marsden of the Africa Programme at Chatham House, former British ambassador to Sudan, and live in Khartoum, protester Firas Faisal. I promised I would come back to Ali Trayo here from the Sudan Liberation Movement, who was just about to give us his point on what you are looking for right now. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so on more concrete and pragmatic level, where I am saying that this arrangement, exposure, every party or all the actors are trying to shape themselves and putting what is to be done, what next step for us as movements, whether from Darfur or you call it, or from two areas, Blue Nile, Nuba Mountain. We think that the peace is should be an integral process from this dynamics, so that we should rest in a democratic situation whereby we can overcome the negatives of October 1964 and April 1989. Okay. So my main point is that the concern for peace should be
85.
Central. 85, sorry.
So you're mentioning these dates, obviously 64, 1985. I mean, you can add 2003 for what happened in Darfur. I mean, it seems that basically you've lived through just trauma all the time. There's been trauma in the history of the nation completely.
Definitely. What I'm saying is that we should break this cycle of a revolution, democratic regime, military coup, military coup d'etat.
And how do you do that?
The only way to overcome that is to establish first of all, every party has to recognize the concern of different groups, whether on regional basis or on ethnic basis or on party basis. So we need to have a citizen-based democratic system. reinforced by security arrangements that reforms its institutions, whether at the army, the police, the security, so that we configure all this together and pave a way for a democratic
citizen-based
state.
democracy, but it has to be helped and reinforced and safeguarded by the authorities, by the forces, by the army, by the police. It needs to be safeguarded, not threatened.
This is a very important point, if you allow me.
Sure, go ahead.
You know, we since independent, we don't have constitutional or organizational state. If we have this, Sudan military will not commit genocide against its own in Darfur, in Nuba Mountain, in Blue Nile, in South. So we want to establish, we want to found a state of organization. We want to create a constitutional organization. This military body in Sudan, since independent, is not present Sudanese, all Sudanese people. It is a racism organization. It has to be a national one. It has to have a belief that this country is belong to all, and they are an entity to protect their own civilian, not to kill them. Not to be a favor of the ruling government. They have to be a favor of the people of the country equally. We don't have, for example, economical institutions. We don't have banking system. We don't have education system. We are, that a mosaic people of the country, well, Muslim, Christian, Arab, non-Arab, we don't have equal citizenship in our country. We have to know how to manage.
You're lacking the basics to basically build the society that you want. Those
yes,
basics,
this is why
education,
you ask very much important
financial
question.
regulation.
This revolution has to be a revolution to found a country of equal citizenship.
Quick word from Azad, and I'm going to Firaz.
For adapting today, there is the constitution represent for the military of the military council today from the force of the declaration and freedom and change today.
No, we are not a part of that.
There is a constitution for this force today. The constitution it represent maybe I don't know the institution will reflect the majority of Sudanese people, but today there is new constitution.
Let me bring in Firaz from Khartoum, who's listening and I'm sure keen to get involved in the conversation. Firaz Faisal, who is a protester, joining us live there from Khartoum. Firaz, I hope you can still hear us. I hope you've been following what's being said here. The idea of this civilian constitutional democracy, I take it that is exactly what you're looking for.
It's exactly what we're looking for, and it should be protected by a national army. But the problem is that if we looked at the structure of the army right now, we will see that a part of the army now is the rapid support militias, or what has been formerly known as Janjaweed. We have that leader who has committed horrible atrocities in Darfur as the deputy man of the Transitional Military Council, which is something that the majority of the protesters are not happy about, because we cannot rely on such entities to protect our revolution or to fulfill the objectives of our revolution. As for the constitutional announcement that has been made by the forces of change and freedom, it gave their perspective on the structuring of the next state of Sudan, and we're still waiting for a response from the Transitional Military Council.
But you will keep up the pressure. That's the basic line, isn't it, Faraz? You're going to go through Ramadan, as you said. There's no way you're going to sort of take your foot off the gas here. It's going to continue.
Exactly.
That's our only mean of pressuring the military to hand over the power. So that's what we're going to keep on doing, no matter what we are. We already gave lives. We have suffered. We have been arrested, tortured. We went through horrible things to make this transition, and we are not about to stop until we see a real transition.
Okay.
Firas, thank you. We've got Aisa Ali here in the studio, completely agreeing with everything you're saying. I'm going to bring in from London Dame Rosalind Marsden, the former British ambassador to Sudan and now Associate Fellow at Chatham House on the Africa programme there. Dame Rosalind, we've mentioned Darfur. Darfur, I've read, is about the size of Spain. And that is about 15% of the actual mass of Sudan. Sudan is a massive country, the biggest in Africa. And can you give us some idea of the potential that country has and potential that perhaps could be exploited in some way and how maybe people's lives could be changed if this next transition goes the way that most people would like it to go?
Well, first of all, I would very much agree with the points made by Abdul Wahid Al-Nur and Ali Trayo about the real centrality of achieving a comprehensive and just peace one of the top priorities of the transitional process. We saw in 1964 and 1985, at the time of the last uprisings, that our movement then was not part of the transition. And I think it's very important, and this is a point the armed movements are making, that this time they're very central to the process. In terms of what the potential is for Sudan, I think the protesters absolutely want to see a country, a civilian administration that is inclusive of the regions, inclusive of women and youth who've played such a prominent role on the streets in pressing and bringing about this revolution. But they want to see a government that is based on equal citizenship, recognises the huge diversity of the country, and that respects human rights and the rule of law, which, as has been pointed out, has been very much lacking so far. So I think there is a feeling that in order for meaningful reform to start, for the economy to be stabilised, and for the people of Sudan to start to move forward, drawing on all the huge talents that exist in the Sudanese population, the first step is to reach agreement on a civilian-led government, on the powers of the various institutions during the transition, how long that transition should be, and then during the transitional period, that civilian government would lay the foundations for a conducive environment to have free and fair elections, which we haven't seen in Sudan. That I think is sort of some of the priorities that are very much in people's minds, and that's why everyone's so keen to get agreement on civilian rule so that things can move forward. And the people of Sudan can start to live the sort of lives in freedom and prosperity that they so much deserve.
Hear, hear. Thank you very much, Dame Rosalind Marsden there. We mentioned the military council, of course. Do you have a sense around the table here that these people, of course, we invited them to join us. They didn't provide anybody to do that, and neither did the embassy here in Paris. But do you have a feeling that these people want to compromise, or are they actually trying to shut the civilians out of things?
Ferris, if you allow me.
Go ahead.
I want to express my deep proudness when I saw that young man in Khartoum, that well-oriented people know what is their problem, what they need, and their belief. He said that no matter the cause, they want this military council to hand over the power to the civilian government. This is what we fought for 18 years. We paid everything to achieve that goal. And now those young girls and boys, men and women in the street for that, I'm very proud. Our revolution had success. To be frank with you, this what is called a military council is not they present this position. It is the revolution of these young heroic girls and boys in the street. They suffer. They pay everything. They force Bashir to step down, and they force the other one to step down, and now they will force this military council to step down because the power is not theirs. The power is the power of the people whom revolt.
And I think everyone here will agree exactly with what you're saying. Before we progress any further, let's take a listen to, this is on tape, it's someone from the military council leader, I believe, giving us an opinion to try and sort of give us a kind of balance on the situation. Let's take a listen to this extract.
We, as the Transitional Military Council, want a Sudanese national and civil revolution, including the youth who don't have any political affiliations or agenda, youth who care about the country and civilians. We must all play our part so we can reach a satisfactory and inclusive agreement for the Sudanese people.
Mohammed Hamdan Daglo there from the Transitional Council. He's saying the right things, Asa, but do you believe him?
Yes, we have big reservation, the Sudanese people, about this character, Hemeti. Now we are the revolution under the declaration of the freedom and change. So this will continue until the civilian government, not less. Military. There is no military step down. They say transition and I will give for the civilian. There is no experience like this. So the generation now, they choose the road of the civilian and peaceful until the end. The Hemeti, the military, until he must protect the revolution and the civilian until apply the civilian government. After that, there is many reservation against the character of Hemeti. Under the democracy and the justice regime, after that, everyone, they will be under the justice.
And of course, the thing is that these people, the senior military, of course, were the senior military under Bashir. That's the problem, isn't it?
For the before maybe the 2 months or 2 weeks like this, he helped the people, but now he really there is big question in front of him, and also he's like divided. Now he's not helping the revolution really.
Firas Faisal in Khartoum, can I get your thoughts on that one? That the man we just heard speaking from the Military Council, Daglo, he's saying one thing, perhaps he means something else.
Yes, they always do that. They say all the right things, but when you come to look at the reality and see what they're actually doing, you will find that they are not trying to make any progress in the situation. And what they're trying to do, from my perspective, is they're trying to fulfill foreign agendas from other from other countries in the region, and they're not exactly
and gain time, as I said.
Gain time for us.
Yes, they are trying to gain time to break the unity of the people during the time that they are buying, so that they can stay in power. They are very manipulative, and they are thirsty for power, and they do not want to leave their chairs.
And I think they wait more support from the external interfere.
Exactly.
And this is the main issue and main problem.
If you allow me, the dangers to this revolution is there is a generation don't believe on anything except they believe on themselves, they trust themselves, they liberate from the fear, they march and they destroy this regime. The first phase of the regime is fall down, but the machine of this regime is still there. They want to get this machine out. The problem is that these failure political bodies,
replacing the faces,
which they call themselves Declaration of Freedom and Change. This political body, unfortunately,
exactly,
they were the one who negotiated with this regime and make 46 an agreement giving legitimacy to this regime. And they want to make the business as usual. I am called upon them, please, let this use, let them alone. They know what they're doing. They're doing the job and the business excellent way.
Exactly.
They know how to
lead the Sudan.
They know how to lead the Sudan. And I'm very sure they're going to lead the Sudan.
Ali Trayo, please.
Thank you very much. Just let me... Yes.
In a second, Firas, you're up next.
Yeah. Let me put this way, the way I see it. First of all, the military council is in a bad shape. Two, the military council did not make itself. It is being made by the old regime, as Abdul Wahid referred and Ustad as I said. Three, it faces a number of challenges, a numerous challenges. But let us put this way, from pragmatic point of view, there could never be a vacuum of power. Somebody somehow has to be for the arrangements. Now the youth, the protesters, and everybody is saying that power to the people immediately.
Exactly. Yes, the power in the street, in the revolution.
Yes, we are supporting that. We are supporting that. But the point I want to make, any arrangements, power to the people, yes, but that call should integrate an element of peace into that process.
Exactly.
If you get power to the people, like classical model in October 64 or April 85, you will face different challenge and you will repeat.
Exactly.
So it's
circle.
Exactly.
It opens another difficult box. Can I just pause you because I need to bring in Firas from Khartoum who wanted to speak. Firas, are you still with us? I hope you are. Over to you, sir. Firas in Khartoum.
Yes, I'm here. What I wanted to say is that we need someone to lead the political process. So the declaration of freedom and change forces have been the main leader of, or the main organizer of the revolution since the breakout of the revolution, and so it's the only force that has the trust of the youth and the people in the street and the protesters.
Exactly.
And they are the only political power that has been able to actually get our voices heard and to say what we think. And so they have our trust. We do encourage them, and we will keep supporting them until we reach our goals.
Okay.
Firas,
Perfect.
Let me add.
Firas, thank you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead,
Okay.
Abdel. Go ahead.
I respect a point of view of Firas, but I hope this other spokespeople will come. I'm in contact. We have youth organizations. I do believe
the thing is,
that
everything
youth
needs a leader, doesn't it? And a structure. That's the problem.
Let me finish. These youth are not trust this organization at all, as I saw. These charter have been created when youth was in the street already. These charters, a lot of leaders of them, they even humiliate the demonstrator. They said this demonstration will never change. Club will never change. People are not trust them. We have organization. I have contact with hundreds of youth organizations. They don't trust them. I am very sure. Second, this is our problem in Sudan. For example, we are leaders of movement, as Trio said. Our members, just members, if they came to the theater of action in Khartoum and announce that we are part of this movement, they will be killed. Since the start of this revolution, they accuse us we are behind. We are agent of Israel. We are Mossad. 100 of our supporters, they are in jails. They are not released yet. So the problem in our country, some people hijack the position or the situation and the revolution, and they were not even with the revolution, they're against it. They were with the plan of soft landing, and they went fast, and they agree the election 2020. As I said, to be frank with you, it is a time for us to establish Sudan. All factors, all political bodies, all youth organizations, all political organizations have to sit in round table to found a country of organization. Without that, it's a business as usual. It's October, it is April, and it is a new failure.
Okay, I can ask Mr. Abdul Wahid.
Very, very quickly, please. Very quickly.
What about the transition government civilian? Okay, you agree with this?
100%.
Okay, after this, the democratic and the void. You agree with this?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're talking about the 4 years transition. So all the majority of the the revolution now behind the declaration, and after that, within the 4 years, it will be after that the void. So we are all support now this point.
That is your view, and I fully agree with you. But let me tell you, in Sudan, there are people pay.
Exactly.
For this revolution.
Exactly.
And there are people pay more or less than the others. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
The voice of those who pay genocide is not there.
Okay.
The voice of those who are in periphery of the country is not there. The voice of those, I don't mean in the street, I mean in the bodies of these. Second, people are running after power. Why you recognize the military council while the street is not recognizing it? The street saying that this military council should hand the power.
So do you
think
the millions of people, the million people that you're expecting at this march, their voice will be heard tonight? Do you expect that to happen?
Very much.
Can you expect that? Go ahead, final word.
Well, we need to read the situation in a very pragmatic way. It is very sweeping statement to say that the change forces for change and freedom does not represent. I don't think so. I beg to disagree because it is an umbrella that include almost 90% of the opposition. Let's do that. Maybe we differ the behavior, how it behaves. Maybe we differ the way it behaves. I myself, I have my reservations. My organization has its reservation on the behavior of that. This is one. Two, what I'm trying to emphasize, the message that I'm trying to send to FCF
quickly, please.
Anybody that if we don't ingrain the issue of peace in the 3 areas, Darfur, Blue Nile, and Nuba Mountain, we are going to a failure in the Eastern Sudan. Because look in Darfur, for example, we have about 3 million IDPs. Nobody is representing them. Nobody is considering their representation.
Now, allow me. I want to make one appeal here.
You can hear how this is.
One appeal. You know that in Darfur, Nuba Mountain, Blue Nile, the government blocked a humanitarian organization not to help people. I am calling upon international community. Please open corridor humanitarian organization to end.
Time is against us, I'm afraid. We need to end the program here, but thank you all very much for joining us. Ali Assa, Abdel Wahid Al Noor, Ali Trio from Dame Roslyn in London, and Firoz Faisal in Khartoum. Thank you all for joining us and sharing your views, very passionate views too, and so they should be, on the future of Sudan. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching. Stay with us.